Hello, my name's Sam Taylor, and I'm here with Tim McCaw, and we're talking to Ken Wong, who's the. What was your actual job title on Monument Valley?
Art
director.
We don't really have titles. Like in the game, there's just a list of us who worked on it.
Okay.
But I guess what I tell people is I'm the lead designer and one of the artists who worked on Monument Valley.
Okay. So Monument Valley is a game that came out recently. I've got to say right now that I know very little about games. I'm probably one of the worst people to be interviewing about computer games. I really don't play them very much. But
and Tim hasn't played Monument Valley at all.
Yeah, exactly. But as soon as that game came out, I saw everybody on Facebook posting it up online, and there was like little clips from games, and there was little. Or the people were just going nuts about it in a way that people don't usually do. My friends don't usually do, it got all this press, so I downloaded it, and it just absolutely blew my mind. I thought it was like very different from any other game that I'd ever played, either on iPhone or on a console, or any game that I'd seen anybody play, so that was why we wanted to talk to you. I mean, I think particularly from a graphic point of view, look very different from other things that I've seen before. I was thinking maybe we could start by you telling us a bit about how
I'm playing Monument Valley now.
Live, yeah. I was thinking maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you got started in games, and then I guess leading on to how Monument Valley came about.
Sure. So I grew up in Australia, and I guess when I was doing my university degree, which was a BA in multimedia, I started working and doing concept art for games. And actually the story of how I got into games was there was a game around the year 2000 called Alice, American McGee's Alice. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a game based around the book Alice in Wonderland, but it's kind of violent and gothic.
Okay. Right.
And I really got into this game, and I did some fan art for it, and put it on the web, on a fan website.
Wow.
And the game designer who made Alice, his name is American McGee, saw this bit of art, and he wrote to me and said, "Would you like to try doing art for my next game?" And I'm like, "Wow, sure."
That's incredible, man.
So that's I wasn't trying to get a job in games, but that's kind of a fan artist's dream.
That's awesome.
And
had you worked professionally at that point?
I believe I hadn't. I think that was actually my first job ever.
Wow.
So I had no idea how to be a freelance artist, and kind of had to make it up as I went along.
I don't think that would happen in animation. I don't think that you would get. I mean, I don't feel that people take their fans that seriously in the same way. I mean, I feel like there's a separation between the two. I kind of feel a little bit like there's some kind of snobbery in animation from people who are in the industry as opposed to people who are outside.
Well,
maybe I'm wrong about that.
I've seen there was a guy called Sean Galloway, and he was a comics guy, and he did a lot of like Hellboy. He just, like people do fan art. If you're a comic artist, you're going to draw loads of stuff. And I think off the back of him drawing like Spider-Man and Hellboy quite a lot, and people liking his designs, he ended up designing for the TV series, the animated TV series of both those things.
Okay.
That's the only thing I can kind of think of that's similar.
I'm sure it happens. But I think usually to get employed, you have to have more than just fan art. You have to have your own ideas too. I mean, I don't think when someone at Disney sees a portfolio just of Disney fan art, that's a big turn on.
I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like
so that's how I got my start. And then once I graduated, I'd been working with American on and off for like about 2 years at that point, and he helped me get my first full-time job in Hong Kong, which was an art direction gig. And and I had never been an art director before. I'd never had an art director before, so I didn't really. I had an idea of what an art director did, but I kind of had to figure it out as I went along.
What were you doing at this actual point?
You mean when I got my first job?
When you got this, you said you never had an art director, but you were working in the industry in some capacity.
No, I was just doing freelance jobs.
Okay,
over the internet.
In games,
yeah.
Right. Okay.
Doing concept art, but I guess again, having never really been trained as a concept art, because I mean, I didn't know that actually, like in the film industry, that's called visual development, and I did what I thought you should do, which is write lots of notes on your concept art, saying how it should be implemented.
Right.
And then when I saw how the 3D artist did it, I'm like, no, that's not how it should be done in 3D.
Right.
And I would paint over the 3D models and say, oh, we do this, and I would adjust it in Photoshop. And I guess Americans saw that and said like, oh, okay, well, you should be an art director because that's what that role should be. And so after.
So have you studied anything sort of art related?
I studied multimedia at university,
and so that was in Adelaide.
In Adelaide, at the University of South Australia, but it wasn't like really in depth. I mean, it was a BA, so I did like I think 2 semesters of psychology and 2 semesters of video editing and like a course in Flash and a course in 3D Studio Max, but nothing really in depth, like nothing really design oriented.
So when you came into this job, you were a games fan though, I guess, and you researched a bit about how games were made, and you had a bit of experience, no?
Oh, I don't think I knew that much about how games were made. I mean, roughly like what I'd read in magazines, maybe, but I guess I was looking into a bit about how animation was done, how films are made, and that's always informed me. Just I think I've always been interested in just the act of creation, like how do people turn ideas and feelings into works of art that reaches an end user or end viewer, and I think that's all this. Tim just rode.
I'm playing Monument Valley, and I just figured I could move these things about, and I was like, how the hell can I like get across here? But I figured it out. It's pretty good.
We're blowing minds in real time.
So it's like Games Master.
So you were in. You actually went and worked in Hong Kong, or were you working remotely?
No, I went to work there, and I had no idea what Hong Kong was like.
Right.
What was happening actually is American was working with a team remotely in Hong Kong, and so he was kind of game designing remotely. And he's like, well, they need an art director there. You should just go to Hong Kong and be the art director. And this was around the time that Bush got re-elected, and then American was like, screw the US, I'm going to move to Hong Kong as well.
So he's from America.
American McGee from America.
Oh, wow.
So we ended up moving to Hong Kong at about the same time, and that was really cool because.
So you went with him?
I mean, slightly different times.
Right.
So he moved from California to there, and then I think a few weeks later, I moved from Australia to Hong Kong, and that was the first time I'd moved out from home, and my first real job, and my first time living in a country that didn't speak English.
Oh, right.
So it was a huge adventure. I mean, apart from just getting to make games and get paid for it, I was moving to this exotic country, and kind of American going through that at the same time. We got to kind of share notes and kind of learn a bit of Cantonese and explore the city together. It was a great place, and I was kind of freaked out about moving to Hong Kong. This is before I'd done any traveling.
How old were you at this stage?
I was 22, I think, or 23, and my friend said to me, it's like you're going to be living in Blade Runner. Yeah. And I was like, I love Blade Runner, but I don't know if that's a good thing. And of course, and it was brilliant. And then about 2 years after that, I moved to Shanghai, which is even more like Blade Runner. And and that doesn't have so much of that Western influence, and there you can't just get by with English. And so I'd struggled to learn Cantonese in Hong Kong, but I got to learn Mandarin Chinese in Shanghai while making games as well.
Okay. But are you, forgive me if I'm wrong, but are you from a Chinese heritage? Or?
Yeah. So my grandparents are from China, and then my mother and father were both born in Malaysia.
Okay.
And then they met in Adelaide, and I was raised there.
So you didn't sort of grow up learning any sort of second language?
My parents tried to get me to learn Chinese, but it didn't really sink in.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And because growing up in Australia, I felt Australian. I never really felt like I had a Chinese identity.
Yeah. Okay.
But I learnt a little bit when I was young, and so when I went to Shanghai, it was a little bit easier to start it again.
So how long were you in Shanghai for?
I was there for 5 years.
Wow.
And I didn't plan that. I thought I was only going to hang around for maybe 2 years, like do one project and then move on.
And you were working in the same games company, the Hong Kong games
It was a
company?
different games company. So we, American started a new games company there called Spicy Horse. And
That is a good name.
Yeah. And a lot of people think that we were a restaurant. And we did one game there called Grimm, which is based on Grimm's fairy tales, and then the next game after that was called Alice Managed Returns, and that's actually the sequel to American McGee's Alice.
Right.
So to come full circle, the game, I did fan art of the first Alice game, and that's what got me into the industry. And then 7-8 years later after that, I was art directing the sequel.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So you were saying in with Monument Valley you didn't have necessarily like a designated job title.
Yeah.
But at that company, I assume you did. You were art director.
Yeah, I mean, every games company is sort of structured differently.
Right.
Especially now. I suppose, previously, sort of during the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 era, there was sort of more of a recognized pipeline on how to make games, and I think an art director would have been more of a standard role.
Right.
But now that we have many more ways of making games, and team sizes can go all the way to 500 down to one person. And so Monument Valley was made with a team of 8, and I was the game designer and sort of the lead artist. So I didn't really we didn't have an art director.
Sure.
Yeah, there was only one other artist, so we just talked, and that was how we art directed.
Okay. So just come back to the sort of timeline of you getting into games.
Sure.
So after Shanghai, you then subsequently went and made your own game completely on your own. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, more or less by myself. I was very happy with the work that I'd done at Spicy Horse, but I felt like there was more that I wanted to learn, and so I wanted to try my hand at game design. And I guess one way of, instead of convincing other people to follow my design, I thought I would just make a game by myself. And there's a wonderful tool called Unity 3D, which is like very user-friendly, so much so that me, an artist, can make a game by myself with a bit of programming knowledge.
So you do program a little?
Yeah. And we actually made Monument Valley with Unity 3D as well. So on Hackeycat, I had to...
that's the name of the game.
Yeah. So you know what hacky sack is?
Yeah.
Sure. So it's like hacky sack, but with cats.
Wow, that sounds brilliant. I'm sold.
Yeah, and it's really important actually to have a one-line pitch for your game, because the App Store is super competitive.
Yeah.
I guess I should say that, it's really important that you do some research.
So this was an iOS game?
It's an iOS game. I'd gotten an iPhone and an iPad, and I was really interested in the new kinds of games that you can make with that, and the App Store environment, which is, you can't buy this in a box at HMV. It's all through this App Store. And first thing to do was like do some research and figure out. It just doesn't sound very romantic, but how to position your product.
Sure. I mean, you're making a product. You've got to make it.
Right. I guess a lot of games fans they want to believe that games are art, and they think that we shouldn't think about commercial interests.
It's ridiculous. I think people hate that kind of attitude of like, well, the cream will just rise to the top if you just put it out there. You make your art and put it in a bottle and throw it into the internet ocean, and someone will find it. It's like you've got to think about it in a business way as well.
Well, I mean, occasionally it does happen where you fluke, and the thing that you made happens to be people go crazy about it. You know, like Minecraft, for example, without really considering anything. But I wanted to learn as much about making games as possible, and so I looked at what games are successful, and I think being able to, just having the title Hackeycat, and having a nice cute icon, that's a good start. Being able to tell people it's got hacky sack with cute cats, and then you see the gears turn in people's heads, and they're like, so you kick cats, and I'm like, yeah, and they're like, wait, that sounds awesome, but that's wrong. That's awesome. And
did you ever worry that it wasn't going to get onto the App Store because of cruelty to the animals issues? Or
I think that's a risk I was willing to take.
Right, okay. How long did you develop it for?
I thought it was the smallest idea out of all the ideas I had at the time.
Right.
Like I wrote down all these cool ideas about what I could do, and I'm like, all right. Basically, keep a projectile in the air. That's the mechanic, right? You tap on the screen to keep something in the air. It sounds simple. Just make them look like cats. There you go. I thought it would take 3 months, and it took about 13 months.
Wow.
So...
Was you working at the same time while making it?
No, I'd saved up enough that I could... I didn't need to do any other work.
Yeah, that was one thing I was going to ask. Sorry, going to look back a little bit. Is I understand in China, like the kind of money that someone from China would earn is not a lot. Was you on a kind of rate there similar to what someone would expect to earn there, or was you on kind of games money but just in China?
It's a little bit in between, I suppose. Yeah. It's true that the cost of living is lower in China, and so actually, while salaries are lower, you can get by with little. A lot of foreign companies they pay foreigners a higher wage in order to incentivize them to move out to China, and the way that Spicy Horse was run, it was decided to treat foreigners and locals more or less equally. So I think the salary that I had was quite comfortable. It's not as much as I would have earned in the West, but it was more than enough to get by.
So when you were making hacky sack, were you doing it in
Hackeycat?
What did I say?
You said hacky sack.
Oh, sorry, man.
That's all right. That's
when you were making Hackeycat, was you in China?
No, I guess, long story. But when I was deciding to leave China, I decided to do a little bit of traveling, and I went to the Philippines, and I met a girl there who I wanted to get to know better. And so I'm like, I'm at this transition point in my life. I can live anywhere. I'll move to the Philippines and we'll hang out. So I moved to the Philippines and rented an apartment there and started making Hackeycat.
Okay.
And then I figured out things didn't really go well with the girl, and so after a few months I moved back to Australia actually, and it helped that I was living back with my dad. But I wanted to get back in touch with Western civilization actually. After living 7 years in China, I wanted to just recalibrate and see old friends, and that was the year that I turned 30. and it was really great actually to take stock and not have a job, to just be working on this thing by myself and meet up with old friends and meet new friends and go through this process of, it's almost like self-actualization. Like I've learned all this stuff and now I'm going to apply it and do this thing that's just for me. I'm going to make a game, and no matter what happens afterwards, this is something that I've done by myself and is my vision.
I think it's really important to do something that you can put your name to and say that's your thing, even if you never do something like that again. After that, it's like at least you know that's, if you put your mind to it, that's what you can. That's what you can.
That's what it felt like.
But that's amazing that you could take 13 months off without doing paid work.
Yeah.
So you must have been living quite cheaply, either that or you made an absolute fortune in China.
I did a bit of freelance work,
right.
And when I was back in Australia, I was living at my dad's place, so I wasn't paying rent, and I guess I'm reasonably good at saving.
Right.
So
you don't have expensive tastes.
No, I don't have expensive tastes.
I guess that helps.
Yeah,
in projects like that done.
And so was it? So how successful was it as a game?
The game,
is it a free app? Or?
It's not free. It's 99 cents,
okay.
Which is 59p or 69p here.
That's like the going rate on the App Store for a game.
Well, we should come back to that.
Okay,
it's always changing, but So I put it out, and you can also buy cheeseburgers in the game. Like, cheeseburgers are the currency. The cats collect cheeseburgers.
Okay.
But if you're a bit impatient to collect all the cheeseburgers, you can buy packs of cheeseburgers.
So it's an in-app purchase.
That's an in-app purchase, which is a bit of a dirty word to some people. But you can have a lot of fun in the game without paying any more. Sometimes people decide to spend money on cheeseburgers, and so that's additional income above the
and how much is that then?
I think you can pay like $1, $3, $6, and $10. I think
that's like you get a real cheeseburger for that, right?
Sure. But it's, I mean, the way that you look at it is, you're finished with your real cheeseburger in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But potentially for that money, you're going to be getting several hours of enjoyment out of the game. Yeah.
So and people were doing it. People were paying $10.
Yeah.
People still are, I guess.
Not a lot anymore.
Right, okay.
But to come back to how successful it was, it basically covered a low salary for a year. So if I had to have been supporting myself, I would have basically broken even.
Okay.
And that's great. That's what I wanted.
So it kind of, you made back what it kind of cost to make it, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, if I'd been paying myself a salary, which I wasn't. I mean, I wasn't doing it to break even, or I mean, I wasn't doing it to make money, and so I wasn't really keeping track of costs. I wasn't bad with money, but it was a tremendous learning experience. I learned so much, like everything from how just the mechanics of how to get your app on the App Store. I actually decided to work with a PR firm.
Really?
Because I don't know a lot about that, and so much about making a game is actually, making a successful game is about getting people to know about it and talk about it, and like I said, designing the game around being able to be talked about, that's one thing, but then also just how do you try to get App Store featuring, which is the number one thing you want, and how do you get your game out to the press, to magazines and websites and all that kind of stuff. Thinking as a business developer, I'm thinking like, if I work with an external partner, they probably know a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I actually learned how to animate. Actually.
Oh, really?
The first animation I ever did was on Hackeycat.
Oh, wow. And I guess you had to learn a little programming as well.
I had to get much better at programming.
That's really interesting that you work with a PR firm. Could you talk a bit more about that?
Are they specialised in apps?
Yeah, so they're a company called Surprise Attack, and they're based in Australia, and their remit is to support Australian games developers, and they work with a range of clients, everything from like one-man teams to like bigger companies that just want to market themselves in Australia, and it was a really interesting educational experience working with them.
Did you find that working with them was kind of what made the difference in sort of generating revenue off the back of the game?
It's hard to say. So going back to pricing, I don't know how much you guys know about mobile games, but the conventional wisdom out there right now is to make your games freemium. And what that means is you put the game out for free, and people are like, oh, free game, awesome, and they start playing. And as you play, you realize that you could have more fun if you just paid a little bit more money.
Yeah.
Whether that's for more powerful weapons or more lives or whatever.
Yeah.
That's freemium in a nutshell. And the vast majority of revenue that comes from the App Store is through freemium.
Really?
Through in-app purchases. Yeah, it's something like 95% of revenue.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That is incredible.
So, so they were being smart and saying, "Hey, you should really make Hackeycat freemium." And I do have in-app purchases, but their advice was to be a bit more aggressive on the pricing, and perhaps they were suggesting to introduce certain game mechanics in to encourage people to buy cheeseburgers.
What's game mechanic?
Well, say we put a power-up system into Hackeycat,
Okay.
but then instead of waiting for the power-ups, you could buy the power-ups using cheeseburgers. In a way, it's like making the game easier or kind of jumping ahead by paying money, right? And this was interesting because I wanted to at least break even, and now that I'm working with this company on a revenue share basis, I want them I want the game to be successful so that they get paid as well. And it was at this point that I realized that I'm making this game for me, and I want to always be comfortable with this product. And so I decided to pull back, and I said, like, you know what, I understand that this would make more money, but I don't want to do that. I want this game has to be personal to me, and there are certain things about the game that maybe it's the way that I grew up with games, but I want to keep it this way.
Okay.
And so they gave me a lot of advice, and it's good advice, but a lot of it I decided not to take.
Right. Okay.
And did you get featured on the App Store?
I did not get featured on the App Store.
But Monument Valley was on the front page for quite a while.
Yeah. I mean, so the biggest difference to your app success will be Apple featuring you. That'll be like on the iTunes homepage or the games homepage, and that is more important than all the press and all the tweets combined.
How about the rankings? Because they have like top 10. Is it important to get in that?
It helps.
Yeah.
So actually, so on the day that Monument Valley came out, we still didn't know if we were going to be featured.
Right.
Apple doesn't really tell you. And we released and we watched all the tweets come in, and we watched the App Store, and we actually reached number 6 paid app in the US, which is the most important market, before we were featured.
Wow.
So I think that's pretty tremendous, because it's like even without the golden bullet, we got into the top 10. And then once featuring dropped around the world, that was incredible. Like we went crazy once we saw it featuring.
What does a games company going crazy look like?
I mean, if you look at our Twitter feed, we took photos of.
Oh, right.
We had a projector in the company projecting TweetDeck. so that we could see all the tweets coming in from people.
Wow.
And I mean, it was cascading. It was updating
amazing.
faster than we could read it.
Wow.
Of people getting the game and finishing it and the reactions from it. And we were drinking champagne,
Nice.
and we were everyone was refreshing their devices. And then someone said, "Wow, we're featured!" And then we put it up on the big screen and took a photo with it.
Oh, amazing. It's been a really good feeling.
So what you were saying that you don't know if Apple are going to feature it before it's released. So you submit it to Apple and they review it and potentially it can get featured off the back of that before it's released.
Yeah, basically. For anybody who's listening, who's working on an indie game or a mobile game. It's funny to say, but the thing to do is tell Apple beforehand that you're working on a great game.
Right. Okay.
And
So
how do you do that? Do you contact the app?
You
the App Store?
you get in contact with Apple, and hopefully you've been networking enough in the industry to know somebody that can get you in touch with Apple. So the company that I work for that makes Monument Valley, us two has made mobile games before, and so we had some contact with Apple, and but by no means it wasn't a straight line. Actually, they didn't really take notice of us the first time that we got in contact. And it was only after our first trailer came out that they sat up and took notice, and they're like, "Oh, that looks really cool." Like,
So you resent it to them when the trailer came out?
No, they just looked back at the email that we sent them 3 months ago.
Right.
And then we just had a dialogue, and so they didn't tell us that they were going to feature us, but they told us that they liked the game and that it looked really nice, and they were looking forward to the release.
It seems to me that I'm sure that this is a conversation that's been had a lot before in other circles, but I don't have. I mean, the first experience I have of the App Store was putting this, or the iTunes Store was putting this podcast up. Right?
All right. Yeah.
And it seemed like it is this like pretty. Quite a difficult sort of landscape to navigate your way around, and it was. I mean, with the podcasting thing, it's difficult to. It's almost impossible seemingly to get in touch with them, but they obviously in this huge position of power. So you have this kind of very powerful organisation which is going to make and break people's careers, and yet they're kind of sequestered away. And how much do you know about the App Store? How many people do they have working for them? Because it seems.
I think I don't know a lot, but what I do know is that Apple only hires the best. They're very picky about who they hire, and so the people that review apps, and especially the people that curate apps for the App Store, is a very small team, and they get thousands of submissions every week. The majority of which are, to be honest, kind of rubbish. I mean, it's very easy to find people doing blog posts saying, "Oh, I made a game for iOS and it sold like 103 copies."
Right.
So there's something broken about the App Store.
Right.
But then you look at what they made, and they made a Mario ripoff.
Right.
And it's like, well, nobody cares that you can rip off Mario. We can all do that. Let's make something that's worth talking about,
Right.
and maybe to be more successful.
It must be a really difficult thing to manage. I mean, something on that scale that's actually curated by human beings.
Yeah,
I'm sure they have algorithms in place which help them sift stuff out. But
They do, but then also, I mean, why rely on the algorithms? Why not? If anybody is worth their salt, they're trying to get in contact with you. So we worked hard to get onto Apple's radar, and they saw that we had a quality product, and it makes sense for them. Why should they have to sort through all the submissions to find someone that didn't bother trying to get in contact with them?
Right, sure.
That said, I mean, they do highlight just kind of random one-shots that they do pick up. I have to say, like, I don't really know how it all works, but this is just from what the little that I know. I mean, subject going back to App Store success. I think a lot of people, they're not actually trying hard to make a hit. They're trying hard to make a game. They may have worked very hard to make a game, but it's more than just look at what I can do. It's about having something unique to offer, you know, and getting and having not necessarily working with a PR firm, but getting the word out there that your game is here, and having a Facebook page, having a Twitter account, you know, having just trying to build a community, trying to have public relations. That's really important.
Did you have a lot of that before the game launched? Did you have a kind of following that was kind of ready to pounce on it?
Well, you know, we released screenshots, and we released a teaser trailer, and we had a Twitter account that you could follow, and we got in contact with various magazines. So before the launch, Edge magazine had written about us. Wired had done a preview.
Wow.
I think even Polygon did a preview before we came out.
Are those still powerful forces, those magazines?
Yeah, sure. I mean, anything to help spread the word. I mean, as long as we have time, we'll entertain whatever podcast comes our way. But
any old podcast.
But I love talking about games. And I love talking about our game. So, and I'm very lucky to be doing what I love for a living. So I could talk games and our game all day.
So moving on from or getting back at least to your sort of own journey into starting Monument Valley. So you finished that game Hackeycat in Australia, and then somehow you ended up in London working on Monument Valley. How did that come about?
Well, I lived and worked in some of the biggest and busiest Asian cities in the world, and I wanted to see what it was like in a big Western city. So, being Australian, I got my like youth holiday visa to the UK because I was still under the age of 31 at the time, and then I realized that unemployment is a big problem in this country, and I'm like, oh shit, maybe I should find a job before I arrive. And I looked online, and this company called Us2, who made a game called Whale Trail that I was familiar with. And the thing about Whale Trail is that it's made with personality.
Right.
And I feel like that's the same with Hackeycat. And personality goes a long way. And so I saw that Us2 had this opening for games artist. And reading the description, it's like, get to work on a small team, get to work on interesting games, have a lot of freedom. And it's funny, the way that it was not written like a conventional games company job description. It was kind of written more like by people who don't really make games a lot. And it's more of like a creative position. And I'm like, this is exactly what I want. I don't want to work necessarily in a conventional games development atmosphere. Because there's the way that a lot like the majority of games are made. I think there's problems with that. And when I had my interview, they were like, "Are you sure you're okay with just small studio, 10 people?" And I'm like, "That's perfect. That's exactly what I want." And so I got the job, and so I moved over here to London and showed up for work.
And so you made the game there, and so do they have? How does ownership of it work?
Well, so Us2 is a company of around 200 people, and they're in 3 studios: New York, Malmo in Sweden, and London. And in the London
What was the first office?
Sorry?
Where did it start? In New York?
In London.
Okay, in London.
It started here by 2 people, and that's why it's called Us2. And of those people, 8 people are on the games team.
Okay.
Of which I'm one. And I guess it's interesting. we have a lot of freedom to create games that we want. And I guess in terms of ownership, us two owns the game.
Right. Okay.
So how the project developed, was it like they were like, we want to make a game, who's got an idea, and you came forward?
We all pitched ideas, or anybody was open to pitch ideas. And I don't really see it as pitching. It's more like I had all these ideas, and what I would do is just do one piece of concept art, or like a poster, and I'd print it, put it on the wall, and see what happened. Because I didn't, especially me coming into this company new, I didn't want to pitch and force my way in. I wanted to be organic. So I just put a bunch of ideas on the wall and as people went past, they would say, "Oh, that looks cool," or ask questions like, "What's that game about?" And I'm like, "What do you think it's about? What could this be?" And that's how the concept for Monument Valley became the first project that we did with this new team. Like after I joined, and another person joined at the same time.
So was that something that you had to push for them to make, or was it kind of like they'd ask you, sort of like what you were doing, which direction did it go?
So I didn't have to push at all.
Right.
Like people, like I said, people kind of identified that piece of concept art had something going for it.
And so this was like a sort of something that looks similar to the final.
It looks almost identical to the final game. Actually. And so that led to more concept art. So just exploring what it could be, and that's not worth anything without an actual gameplay prototype. So we prototyped it in Unity in 2 weeks, I think, and so it was playable on an iPad within 2 or 3 weeks. And we took that to a meeting, and anybody from the company who was interested could come to that. And it was very telling that we gave the iPad to a lady who works at the company who doesn't play games at all, no interest in games, and she picked it up and she couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
And that's almost like the moment that we're like, oh wow, this could be really big.
Well, I mean, I guess that's why it appeals to somebody like me. I think that the thing about Monument Valley was it's visually very different, right? And I think that that's one thing that I don't see in games too much. Why do you think that is? That people seem to invest an enormous amount of time in things like the gameplay and the playability, like see all the things which are very popular. To me, they're not really kind of like design driven at all. They're coming from a slightly different place.
Right.
Would you agree with that sort of characterization, or
have a
limited understanding?
It is a little bit of a limited understanding. The thing is, like, what if I said to you, well, all those DreamWorks and Pixar films, they look all the same. Obviously,
yes, they do.
Yeah, so I might be under the impression that everyone does the same kind of animation these days.
Yeah.
And that's because I haven't thought about foreign animation and short films and advertising and music videos. And that's where all the interesting animation's taking place.
Right, okay.
And it's the same with games. Unless you're actually looking at games festivals and you're seeking out indie games, you might not be aware of how many interesting art styles there are out there.
Right.
Basically, you've got mainstream games which are expensive to develop, and so they need to lower their risks, and so they go with true and tested art styles for the most part. And then on the other hand, you've got upstart indies, small teams, artists who are developing really cool looking games, but they may not have the marketing budget or the visibility to get out there into your hands. Like, you're not a gamer. Do you own a games console?
No.
Okay, so you're only going to come across a few games a year, and they're going to be what people talk about. And I guess Monument Valley has, it's partly by design and with a little bit of luck. It's an intersection of accessible gameplay and accessible yet interesting art.
So I guess that maybe I could phrase the question better. Like, why are these games with interesting visual styles not more visible, in the mainstream marketplace?
Well, how would you ever come across an interesting game?
I do look on the App Store,
Right.
every now and then, see games. I mean, like, I follow various different blogs, design blogs and things like that,
Right.
that would, highlight something along these lines.
But I suppose it must be the same for for there's interesting, cool indie films, animated films, but you're never likely to see the Disney or the DreamWorks film come out looking like that. I think must be for the same reason. It's like as particularly in games, man. There's so much money. They're making so much money out of it at the moment. Why bother mixing it up?
It's exactly that. I mean, everyone knows. Games have been around long enough that we know what works, we know what sells, and it's like any other creative industry. Like, why innovate when you can recycle?
Yeah. Just to put you on the spot, can you name any sort of titles that would be interesting for people to check out?
Absolutely.
Is there anything at the front of your mind?
Sure. So the game that probably had the most effect on Monument Valley is a game called Windosill. That's Windosill spelled without the second W, and it's made by one guy called Vector Park.
I've come across that.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. It looks a bit like Flash, so it's kind of flat shaded, and there's no words in it, and it's just a series of vignettes where you kind of interact on the iPad or on in a Flash window, and it's beautiful because, like we were talking about before, it's not working against the material of what games are. And what games are is interaction, right? That is the fabric of games. And so it's playful. It doesn't tell you what to do. You figure it out yourself by interacting with things on the screen, not with a mouse or with a controller, but directly on the screen. And that's why iPad games can be really great, because the interaction is so direct. So Windosill looks great and plays great. Another one is Sword and Sworcery.
I played that. Yeah.
You've played that?
That's wicked.
So that is a real gem of a game, and kind of like Monument Valley, it kind of bucked the trend of freemium games. It's a what we call premium price game. It's like, I think it was released for $3. Which some people consider to be outrageously priced, but what you get is immaculate design, and just a really well thought out, really well designed game experience.
Yeah.
Another game that I think is really amazing is Super Hexagon, and Super Hexagon also premium price, and it's very arcadey. It's a very arcadey game. It's a very hard game. And it has a very pure visual style. It's a bit Tron-esque. It's vector graphics, but again, very well designed. And it's interesting that people who make games, they haven't really been thinking like designers. Like when we say design, we think graphic design, we think product design, we think Apple and Bauhaus and architecture, right? It's this intersection of engineering and art. And for whatever reason, the games have modeled themselves a lot after the entertainment industry. Action movies, maybe comics, and which is fine, and that's great. I mean, it's great that we can make really great action genre experiences, but to maybe get to audiences like you, like design-oriented people, or just people that aren't interested in violence, really, we can learn a lot from design. Because it's interaction design. And it's funny because what Us Two does, Us Two's main business is UX. It's user experience. And it was only when we finished work on Monument Valley, or maybe towards the end of it, that I realized, oh, actually what we made is a user experience. It's not about, here's some mechanics, some gameplay mechanics that we dressed up with an art style and we added sound because we had to. It's not about that, and some functional UI. Everything is crafted around the user's experience, right? So you look at the user experience of your typical AAA blockbuster console game, and it's usually something like you jump in and they tell you what the 14 buttons on your controller does, and then you come in and you start shooting people, and then you get a better gun and you shoot more people, and then you get a boss. There's a boss fight. What is a boss fight? Why do we have that term? Why is that a staple of what we do? It's funny. I started reading reviews of traditional video games, and they talk about reload times and weapon swapping and inventories and boss fights and gating mechanics and spawn points and why we have this crazy lexicon for hardcore games, and it's for hardcore games, that's brilliant, that's great. We've developed that, but how are we ever going to attract new people to the art form and the entertainment of gaming if we can't get back to actually providing a fun, interesting, meaningful user experience, right? And it's something that the music industry understands, right? You have an album, you listen to it from start to finish, and you maybe pick out individual tracks that you like. There's cover art, you promote the band. That's all an experience. It's easy to understand. Games almost actively push you away. The games are difficult. The game tries to prevent you from experiencing it as a whole. So you look at your blockbuster AAA story-based titles, and very few people actually get through this punishing experience over dozens of hours to complete it, to actually get perhaps the final point of the game. Very few people get to do that. And one of the things that we tried to do differently on Monument Valley is keep it short, manage the amount of challenge, so that the vast majority of people who want to finish the game can finish it. And that's become a talking point about the game.
It was something that a few people brought up, that it was quite short, and for me it was perfect. It's the first time I've ever probably got to the end of a game, maybe since Tomb Raider 2 or something. It was the last game I sat down and played and got to the end of, and I thought that was great. And we were actually talking about it just before the podcast about how almost in the internet age, people can consume these things, these kind of smaller things a little more readily, or if you let people know that it's going to be a small thing in advance, there's space for small things and big things in the games.
I mean, there's room in our lives for movies and a huge TV series like Game of Thrones, and for YouTube videos, and sometimes people, they just want to snack on a 10-minute YouTube video. An interesting thing about games is that you don't know how long a game is going to be, usually, right? When you sit down for a movie, it's between 90 minutes to 3 hours. And usually when it's a 3-hour movie, someone's told you, King Kong is 3 hours, Titanic's going to be 3 hours, but it's worth it or whatever. But when you sit down to play a game, you don't know whether that's going to be, whether you're going to be here for an hour or 20 hours. And so I don't know. Again, it all comes back to user experience. I mean, we watched people play Monument Valley, and we actually noted that people got exhausted. They would get exhausted after only about half an hour. And we're talking about not hardcore gamers, but just normal people. And so we realized that we had to break the game up into like about 10-minute chunks, and that probably would take some people 2 or 3 sittings to play it. Some people would just do it in one. But we almost came to it by accident. But how extraordinary that one of our innovations was just to have people complete the game.
Yeah.
You know,
it's funny. It's exactly what put me off game, because I now don't like play games at all.
Sure.
It's literally because the reason why I don't play games anymore is because Metal Gear Solid 2 was so good.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't put it down. I remember
my friend and I, my colleague, we were just talking about Metal Gear Solid 2 last night, and he marathoned playing through Twin Snakes, which is Metal Gear Solid 1, and then played through all of Metal Gear Solid 2 for the first time, all in one sitting.
Oh my god! So he did 1 and 2.
And 2, yeah.
That is mental. Yeah, I remember finishing it, and like I was when I was supposed to be doing my GCSEs or revision and stuff like that, and I just didn't. I remember finishing it, just being like, games are not Toe Jam and L anymore. Like they are like movies, but you have to sit down. And then it became like this thing. Like I remember going back to school like the day after and being like, oh man, I completed Metal Gear Solid and 2, and they were like, yeah, but what? How long did it take you? Like. And I was like, I don't know, 14 hours, and I did it in like 8. And then it was like, shit, now I've got to like clock it faster on the hard mode and all this stuff. And I was just like, I had to wean myself off them. And then I've just gone kind of cold on them now. Like it's like, it was almost like a trauma that if I find the game is taking too long, then I just sort of go, oh, I don't want to play that anymore. Yeah. And I think maybe, the one thing I've kind of noticed about iOS games is that it's almost like where people decide to kind of go, oh, I'm going to start playing this now. It's usually like when they're travelling home, and I almost thought maybe it was kind of a good thing that games were kind of long, because it was just something to snack on while you were sort of, I don't know, on a bus home or on a train. And it was like, I remember playing Angry Birds just because everyone was, and I could get it now on my Android phone. And it never seemed to end. It was quite long. Yeah. And I didn't mind that, because it was just meant I could always play it whenever I decided I wanted to,
Right.
Did you think about that much?
I think we knew what Monument Valley was naturally wanted to be. And that's all we ever wanted, was to make Monument Valley true to itself, and not force it to be something that it wasn't. And after Monument Valley, I've been thinking a lot about why we play games and the different kinds of games. And this, I'm sort of in my head, I'm working on this big thesis about how the games industry is no longer one industry. It's as different as music videos, ads, short films, long form films, TV series. They're all moving pictures. They're considered to be different fields and different art forms. And so the games that we play to relieve boredom, right? You're on a train, you just want to do something, you want to throw some birds at some pigs for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Yeah, that's great, right? Nothing wrong with that. And you can make that really, really good. I mean, I think it's very fashionable to like take down Angry Birds because maybe it didn't deserve the success that it had. But it's actually a very well made game, and there's reasons why people play it. On the other hand, the games that we play in order to have a transformative experience, the same reason why we might read a book or watch a film, that's a very different kind of game. And we can learn a lot from each other, but they're different goals, and it's I guess it's important to recognize that one is not meant to be the other. Angry Birds is not meant to be a dissertation on the human condition, and something like Metal Gear Solid is perhaps not meant to be accessible. You know, it's not meant to be for everyone. But what it does have to say, if you do get through it, it could be like really amazing. And I've been thinking about why we make games and the difference between these different types of games. And so I compare some mobile games to let's put it this way: what does a game leave you with at the end? And what Candy Crush or Angry Birds leaves you with is the relief of boredom. Okay, but what a really well engineered long form or single player or even multiplayer experience can leave you with is a transformative experience, is with feelings and ideas. And that's where the art comes in. So when people argue about whether games are art, it's important to distinguish that we make some games because they're junk food. And that's fine. Some people need and want junk food. And then on the other hand, there are games that we would position as art.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Are you? Is there a place where people can? Is there like a good blog or something? I mean, like if the app store's obviously maybe not fulfilling that function as well as it can.
I think a really good starting point is a website called Polygon.com, and Polygon is a very well written website. They do reviews, but they also do like big features about events or news in the industry, and so they like to look beneath the surface and really probe it. And, why we play games and how we make games, and beyond that, there is a website called Venus Patrol, which is run by a guy called Brandon Boyer, who used to write for Boing Boing, and his remit is to push indie games. So he won't cover the mainstream AAA games that everybody will know about. Well, gamers will know about. He focuses on small games or unusual games, and that's tremendous. And he's very involved in various communities and programs, like the Indie Games Festival at GDC, which celebrate indie games. And it's great. It's almost like we're seeing the music industry transform from pop to alternative.
You're right.
You know, it's like seeing the rise of garage bands.
Sure.
It's weird because actually computer games began in the garage, and we kind of lost our way for a bit. We went through what I call the dark ages, where the only way to make a game was to have a big enough company that you could afford PlayStation dev kits, and you had to put it out through a publisher. It was very hard to be an independent developer in those days, and the only way to buy the game was a boxed copy in Walmart, and so Walmart takes its cut and the publisher takes their cut, and the retail price had to be whatever it was, $50, right? 30-40 quid. So you had to make a game that was perhaps sellable for 30-40 quid. There was no room for short form games, right? I mean, there was, but it was a very small scene for indie games or small games in those days. And in the last couple of years, not just the App Store and mobile games, but things like Steam for PC and downloadable games on Xbox Live and PlayStation Network, and like new ways of pricing games, including free. It's increased the types of games that we can make, because we can make smaller games and we can make games that monetize differently. And then we've seen a huge diversity in the game players themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, for a long time, actually, the average age of gamers has been above 30, and the percentage of female gamers is close to 50%. So we like to think, I mean, that we still hang on to this impression that games are for teenage boys, but that hasn't been true for a very long time. Games for kids, games for older people can play, games that interest women or don't offend women.
Right.
Things like Guitar Hero and The Sims
Mm-hmm.
and Pokemon, they're all great, and they're just as important as Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto. Right? So it's been interesting reflecting on Monument Valley and seeing that it's wonderful that people think that we're going to make a huge difference. That Monument Valley is showing that mobile games can be great and that they may be a revolution. But in actual fact, we are hopefully part of the lineage of games that have made a difference over the ages. Do you guys know a game called Myst?
Yes, yeah. I remember that was ages ago.
It was ages ago, but if you remember what the landscape looked like at the time, games were very hardcore, very genre driven, usually. And here comes along Myst, which is a quantum leap ahead in terms of graphics, back when that actually meant something. So we have the CD-ROM, suddenly we can have pre-rendered CGI imagery, and it was non-violent, and it was puzzle-based, it was thought-based. All these things together, it made Myst the number one selling game.
Right.
For quite some time, until The Sims dethroned it, I believe.
Okay. So which is interesting because neither of those are kind of like genre-y. Well, I guess Sims is, but it's not like a violent game, or it's not necessarily a boys' game.
When I say it's not genre, I mean it's not fantasy and it's not sci-fi.
Right.
It's less fantastical, but what it brings is we can make a game about relationships and about humans and about suburban life, and that's great. That's interesting because films do that effortlessly.
Right.
TV series do that effortlessly. So imagine the way that people engage with Mad Men or House of Cards. You know, that's the kind of things that games could also do, if not better.
Just before we finish, I was wondering if we could quickly go into a little bit of your process and how you made the game. So I saw there was like a making of video that you guys have online where you've done a bunch of there's like tons of sketching and sketchbooks going on. So I assume that's where it starts.
Not really. I mean, there was two kind of threads going on. Well, actually, first of all, let me say that I think a lot of people think that we made a plan for Monument Valley and then we made it, and then that's how we did it. But the way that it worked, and the only way that we could do it, is we have a kind of a rough idea about how to do it. We try some things, it doesn't work, and so then we worry a bit, and then we try to design it better, and then we try again, and that doesn't work. This is exactly what happened, by the way. And then that doesn't work, and then we get even more worried, and we're like, do we know what we're doing? And then we try it again, and that had potential. And everything along the way was iterative, and we had to work ambiguity and flexibility into the plans, so that when we actually made stuff, that we could be surprised, that we could try things and know that they might be thrown away.
So did you have a schedule? Did you have very specific?
We had a loose schedule. We had a deadline, and once we committed to March the 3rd to submit it to Apple. And we hit that. But
how many months did you take doing it?
It was 10 months altogether.
Okay.
I think we initially hoped that we could do it in 7 months, but that was, I think, unrealistic. So once we had a realistic submission date, we didn't shift from that. And 10 months is a very short time for this kind of game. But we would only plan with a lot of detail the next week or two, and then we had a vague idea of what milestones to hit in about 2 or 3 months, but even those would usually shift. So we only planned with detail for the next week or two. And because with games you're kind of inventing.
Yeah.
It's like designing a Rubik's Cube over and over again.
Right.
So you don't really know what's going to happen. You're trying to find what's going to be fun about it.
So you have like short-term goals.
Yeah, very short. And they're hopefully leading towards long-term goals, but they usually shift.
That's a pretty interesting way of working.
And so when we talk about sketching, because there's so much, it's so organic and we leave so much flexibility in there, the sketches are very rough. They're just notions of, okay, we're going to put something that flips here, and when that flips, this is going to come up, and it's going to create a path. That's what our sketchbooks are full of. And then we kind of sketch it in the game engine itself, and it's a bit like playing with Lego. So you're building these things out of Lego, except the Lego pieces move when you want them to, when she steps here. And then sometimes when you're not looking, we change what the Lego looks like behind the scenes. That's how it works. So you can do that, try it out, and then make it better. And so a lot of the sketching process really goes on in the 3D engine, the magical 3D engine.
And so are you a part of that as well? You did 3D too?
Yeah. It's what we call level design, really. So traditional game, a level design is you build a castle that you can walk around and it has enemies in there. In our game, level design is part architecture, part puzzle design, and part graphic design. All of those things have to work at the same time, what we do.
And what is it that you're working on right now? Is it another games project? Or
well,
you probably can't talk about it.
Well, I can. People love Monument Valley, and they've asked for more levels. And we obviously respect Monument Valley itself a lot. I think it's bigger than us now, and so we want to be very careful not to disrupt that. We don't want to pull a Star Wars Special Edition on people or a Phantom Menace. So we are creating more Monument Valley levels, but hopefully in a way that doesn't reflect poorly on the original experience. And so that's what the team's busy on doing, as well as looking forward to eventually working on new games. And I don't know what those are now.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's
sweet.
Nice note to finish on.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming down and talking to us.
Yeah,
today.
thanks, man.
It's
been
been
super interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Cheers. Take care.